Meanwhile, the Norman fleet had reached its destination. Queen Gerlind, her gentle daughter Otrun, their ladies, and many of the citizens of Cassian went down to the harbour to welcome the heroes home. After they had greeted the kings, Otrun hastened to sad Gudrun's side, and embracing her, told her to be of good courage. Gudrun was touched by the maiden's kindness, though it could not stop her tears. But when Queen Girlind would have kissed her, she recoiled from her touch, for the sharp-featured woman with the bold glittering eyes seemed to her a spiteful snake, ready to dart on his prey and crush it in his coils. "Hey, pretty puppet," said the offended queen. "What, so shy? But you'll soon grow tame under my training." She would have said more, but Hartmut interposed, saying that Gudrun was to be his wife when the days of mourning for her father were over. He then offered the princess his arm, and sorely against her will, she had to enter the palace side by side with him. Some of the townsfolk watching her said, "How beautiful she is!" to which others made answer, "But how sad!" Days and weeks passed on. Hartmut did his best to win fair Gudrun's love, but all his efforts were vain. One day he asked her why she would not love him, and she replied that he was a great and noble warrior, well worthy of a woman's love, but she was betrothed to Hildberg, and would never break her troth. Queen Girlind was not of so patient a disposition as her son. She was determined to break Gudrun's proud spirit, and force her to consent to marry Hartmut. At first she tried soft words and flattering speeches, but, finding these of no avail, she had recourse to sterner measures, though she waited till her son had left home on a warlike expedition. Before going he confided Gudrun to his mother's care, telling her she might try to tame the wild bird in any fashion she liked that was not inconsistent with the maiden's royal dignity. No sooner was Hartmut gone than Queen Gerlind set to work. She made Gudrun dress like a servant, and then set her and her maidens to cook and sweep, and do all the hardest work in the palace. Gudrun bore her wrongs in patient silence. Her soft hands were blistered with scrubbing pots and pans and doing other kitchen work, with which she was busied from early morning till late at night. The queen would sometimes ask her viciously if she would not rather wear the Norman crown than continue to slave in that manner, but she answered gently that she would keep her troth. So she did all that was given to her to do, through the hot summer days and in the icy cold of winter, without uttering a single murmur at her hard fate. Year after year she lived this wretched life. At length Hartmut came home victorious from his wars. He greeted his father, mother, and sister with warm affection, and then looked round for Gudrun. When he saw her dressed in coarse clothing and doing hard work, he was very angry with his mother for her ill treatment of the girl. He begged Gudrun to forgive what was past and gone and grant him her love, trying to rouse her ambition by dwelling on the wealth and greatness of the kingdom he offered to share with her. But Gudrun answered that a noble-minded woman could love but once and never again. So he left her, but took care to protect her from Gerlind's malice. Gudrun was restored to her former position, and slept that night in her old room. Next morning, when she awoke, she found the Princess Otrun, whom she had not seen for a long time, bending over her. The two girls spent the summer together, and learned to love each other warmly. As autumn came on, Gudrun thought that her friend looked graver and sadder than her wont, and asked her the reason of the change. Otrun then confessed that as Gudrun had not given way to Hartmut's entreaties, but remained obdurate as ever, Gerlind intended to separate her daughter from the haggling princess. While the two girls were talking, Hartmut joined them and said, "Lady Gudrun, the warrior to whom you plighted your troth is not worthy of your love. Otherwise he would not have allowed so many years to pass without coming in search of you at the head of his men. He has forgotten you, and is most likely married to another." "You do not know him, noble hero," answered Gudrun. "Death alone, which looses all bonds, could separate us." "What if he has fallen in battle, or has died of some illness?" asked the young king. "Then he shall find me faithful when I join him where there is no more parting," replied the princess, with a look of courageous resolve. So Hartmut took leave of her, and again went away to try and forget her amid the excitement of battle. When he was gone, Queen Gerlind once more deposed Gudrun from her high estate and sent her to wash the clothes, making her work from early morning till late at night, and threatening her with the rod if she were lazy. But the princess worked too hard to give her an excuse for inflicting this last indignity. More years passed on, and at length Hartmut returned victorious as at first. He spoke to Gudrun, but found her faithful as ever to Hildberg. Gerlind, after this, was harder than ever to Gudrun. The other haggling maidens were given lighter tasks than she. They had to spin and card flax and wool, while their beloved mistress had to wash the clothes all the cold winter through, and often, on her return from the shore, she sank into an exhausted sleep on her straw pallet, without having the strength first to take off her wet garments. At last matters came to such a pass that her cousin Hildberg could hold her peace no longer, and asked the queen how she dared treat a princess with such cruelty and disrespect, upon which Gerlind set her to join her mistress in her work. This was just what Hildberg wanted. Her great desire was to be with her mistress, to cheer and comfort her, and lighten her toil. Still, Gudrun had often to go down to the shore alone when Hildberg was busy at the castle. On one of these occasions, she saw a swan come swimming over the sea. "O swan, had I thy wings, I would soar into the sky and hie me to my home." While she spoke, the swan dived into the sea, and in its place up came a mermaid. "O heart long tried and true, thy grief shall pass away. Thy lover and thy kindred live, and lo, they hasten to thy rescue." So saying, the mermaid dived, and again the white swan floated on the wave. He spread his wings and rose in the air, flew 3 times round the princess and sang, "True love on the earth may yet be found, true hearts that never roam. Lo, through the breakers' foam, 'tis thy warrior's spark o'er the wave doth bound, to lead this true love home." It was well for Gudrun that she had this secret hope to support her, for Gerlind's cruelty grew daily more intolerable. The princess and Hildberg were forced to wash the clothes on the seashore, dressed in simple linen shifts and without shoes. When they begged for shoes, the cold was so terrible, their taskmistress gave them insulting words, and threatened to scourge them with thorns if their day's work were not finished by evening. Trembling with cold in the cutting east wind, and their beautiful hair blowing about their faces, they worked on busily. Suddenly they saw a boat gliding swiftly along the shore, rowed by 2 warriors in full armor. The maidens, ashamed of their insufficient clothing, would have fled, but the men called them to stop, and tell them what castle that was on the height above. When they added that they would throw the linen into the sea unless they received an answer, the girls came back, and as they did so, Gudrun whispered, "See, it is Hildberg. I know him well, but he has forgotten me." And in good truth the hero was unaware that his long-lost bride stood there before him. But no sooner had she pushed her fluttering hair back from her face than he recognized her, hastened to her, and clasped her in his arms. When the other warrior opened his visor, Gudrun exclaimed, "Otrun!" and threw herself into her brother's arms. Then Otrun turned to her companion and said, taking her hand in his, "It is you, Hildberg. Do not be ashamed to confess that you and I have long loved each other, and would have been openly betrothed years ago, had not the Normans carried you off." They then exchanged a kiss of betrothal. Hildberg wished to take the 2 girls away with them at once, but Otrun would not consent. He said they must come openly on the morrow for Gudrun and Hildberg, who should never run away secretly from their captors. The 2 girls stood on the shore watching the boat as long as it was in sight. At length Hildberg in startled accent begged her friend to help her to finish the washing, but Gudrun answered proudly that the days of her slavery were over, and, so saying, she cast one garment after another into the sea, and watched them floating away on the waves with a smile, while poor Hildberg tremblingly remembered that they were still in the power of the Norman queen. When they reached the castle, Gerlind came down to meet them, asking why they were so early, and what they had done with the linen. Gudrun answered that the work was too hard for them, and that she had thrown the clothes into the sea, where Queen Gerlind's men might find them yet, if she did not delay too long in sending out boats. The queen was dumb with astonishment when she heard the gentle, patient Gudrun speak to her in such a manner. But soon recovering herself, she called her bondwomen to fetch thorny rods and beat the maidens for their insolence. The women hastened to do as they were desired, but Gudrun called to them to stop, telling them to touch her at their pedal, for she would be their queen on the morrow. "And will you really marry Hartmut?" asked Gerlind joyfully. "I fear there is some trick in this." "Bring the king here," said Gudrun. "I would speak with him." The queen went thoughtfully to her son and said, "Hartmut, the obstinate girl has given in at last, and has consented to be your wife, but—" "No but," cried the hero. "She consents. Mother, I must hear her say so with her own lips." And he hastened from the room. When he saw Gudrun, he would have clasped her in his arms, but she signed him not to approach her, telling him that she could not listen to him in the abode of her misery, but that next morning, in the full light of day, and in presence of all the warriors, she would receive and give the bridal ring. Hartmut now gave orders that Gudrun should be provided with all that was necessary for the comfort and well-being of the future queen, and that her maidens should be restored to her. His orders were fulfilled. The princess and Hildberg kept their secret well. It was not till the haggling maidens were all safe in their sleeping chamber that they heard of the arrival of Otrun and Hildberg. End